For 7 years, everyone called her farm cursed, because every night, wolves surrounded her home. But when armed men came to take her brother, the wolves attacked without mercy. Then one stormy night, a wounded stranger arrived, and the wolves bowed to him. He was the lost Alpha King, and he had come home for the woman they had been protecting all along. There were many things the people of the northern village feared. The winter, the mountains, the old forest where no hunter went after sunset. But more than anything, they feared the wolves that gathered around Mara's farm. Every night, just beyond the wooden fence, pale shapes appeared between the trees. Sometimes there were 3, sometimes 10, sometimes so many that the darkness itself seemed to move. They never crossed the fence. They never attacked the animals. And strangely, they never frightened Mara. Not anymore. She had lived with them for years. She knew the sound of their paws pressing into frozen earth. She knew the low calls they made beneath the moon. She even knew that the white wolf with the torn ear always sat beside the eastern field while the smaller grey one stayed near the barn. The villagers called it a curse. Mara called it a warning. Because whenever something dangerous came near the farm, the wolves knew first. That morning, Mara was repairing a broken fence post while 12-year-old Elias carried a bucket of water from the well. "Slow down," she called. "I am slow. You are running. I'm walking quickly." Mara looked over her shoulder. Elias stopped. He smiled. She tried not to smile back. "Your definition of quickly is going to get you killed one day. I thought wolves were supposed to protect us. They protect the farm. And me." Mara straightened. Her expression softened. "They protect you too." Elias looked toward the forest. A pair of yellow eyes watched from between the trees. He smiled. Mara did not. Something about the forest felt wrong that morning. The air was too still. Even the birds had gone quiet. Then came the sound of wheels. Slow. Heavy. Approaching along the frozen road. Mara's hand tightened around the hammer. A black wagon appeared through the trees. 2 armed men walked beside it. And sitting at the front was Garrick. Mara knew him. Everyone did. He was a slave trader who traveled between territories buying and selling people whose families could not pay their debts. He stopped outside the gate. "Mara." She did not answer. Garrick climbed down. His boots sank into the snow. "I've come for what you owe. You already took the livestock." "Not enough. There is nothing else." Garrick looked past her. His eyes landed on Elias. Mara stepped sideways, blocking him. "There is always something," Garrick said. Elias lowered the bucket. Mara's voice became cold. "No." Garrick smiled. "You misunderstand. I'm not asking." 2 men moved toward the gate. Mara grabbed the old axe leaning beside the fence. Her hands were shaking. She hated that they were shaking. But she did not step back. "Take one more step," she said, "and you'll learn exactly how much I have left to lose." Garrick laughed. "You think that little axe will stop me?" "No." Mara looked toward the forest. "I think they will." Garrick followed her gaze. At first, he saw nothing. Then one wolf stepped from the trees. Then another. Then another. The men stopped. More shapes appeared behind them. Grey, white, black. The entire edge of the forest seemed to come alive. Elias whispered, "Mara." She lowered the axe. The wolves were not looking at her. They were looking at Garrick. The largest white wolf stepped forward. Its lips lifted. A deep growl rolled across the frozen field. Garrick's smile disappeared. "You've made a mistake," he whispered. Mara said nothing. Garrick backed toward the wagon. "This won't last forever." He pointed at Elias. "When the wolves leave, I'll come back." He climbed into the wagon. Before leaving, he looked at Mara. "You can't hide a debt behind animals forever." The wagon disappeared into the snow. For several seconds, Mara stood completely still. Then Elias ran to her. She pulled him into her arms. "You're safe." He nodded against her coat. The wolves remained. Watching. Waiting. That night, Mara stood by the farmhouse window. Moonlight covered the fields. The wolves were there as always. But something was different. She counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She stopped. The enormous black wolf was missing. The one she had never seen come close. The one with the scar across its shoulder. The one whose golden eyes seemed almost human. Mara stared into the darkness. She did not know where he was. But for the first time in years, she wished she did. Because somewhere beyond the trees, something was moving. And whatever it was, the wolves were waiting for it. The summons came before sunrise. 3 hard knocks on Mara's door. She opened it to find 2 council guards standing in the snow. "Council meeting," one said. "Why?" "Because of the wolves." Mara looked past them. The forest was silent. "Of course it is." She left Elias with the neighbor's wife and walked into the village. The council hall was already crowded. Merchants, farmers, pack guards, and Elder Garrick sitting beneath the carved wooden symbol of the Northern Territory. Mara stood before him. "You asked for me." Garrick did not offer her a seat. "The traders are refusing the northern road." Mara folded her arms. "Then tell them to take the southern road. This is not a joke. Neither is selling a child." The room went quiet. Garrick's eyes hardened. "You are referring to yesterday?" "Yes." "Garrick had legal authority to collect your debt. He had no authority to take my brother." A merchant spoke from the side. "The wolves have become a danger." Mara looked at him. "They did not hurt anyone. They frightened travelers. They frightened a slave trader." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Garrick struck the table. "Enough." Mara did not move. "The council believes you should leave the Northern Territory." For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. "Leave. Until the wolves disappear." "And where should I go?" "That is not the council's concern." Mara looked around the room. Every face avoided hers. She had spent years working their fields, buying their grain, helping their children when they were sick. But now that someone powerful wanted her land, she was suddenly alone. Then her eyes landed on an old map hanging behind Garrick. A faded symbol was marked over the northern farm. Mara recognized it. She had seen the same symbol carved into her father's old tools. "The mark on that map," she said. Garrick glanced behind him. "Remove it." A guard immediately pulled the map down. Mara's suspicion deepened. "What is that land?" "Nothing." "Then why hide the map?" Garrick stared at her. "Go home, Mara." She did. But she did not forget. That evening, she searched her father's old trunk. Under a folded blanket, beneath several rusted tools, she found a small metal key. And a torn piece of parchment. Only one sentence remained. "The northern estate remains protected until the king returns." Mara read it twice. Then a third time. The king. Everyone knew the story. The Alpha King had disappeared 7 years ago. Some said he had been murdered. Others said he had fled. The council had never given the people a clear answer. Mara looked toward the window. Outside, the wolves were restless. Every one of them had turned toward the mountains. At exactly the same moment, Mara stepped outside. The cold air struck her face. "What are you watching?" The wolves did not answer. Then something moved at the edge of the forest. A huge black wolf stepped into the moonlight. Mara stopped breathing. He was larger than the others. His fur was almost completely black. A long scar crossed one shoulder. And his eyes. Golden. Bright. Unmoving. He stared directly at her. Mara felt a strange pressure inside her chest. Not fear. Something else. Something she could not name. The wolf lowered his head. Just slightly. Then turned toward the mountains. Mara whispered, "Who are you?" The wolf disappeared into the trees. And somewhere far away, a man opened his eyes. Garrick returned 3 days later. This time, he did not come to the front gate. He came through the back. Mara was repairing the irrigation channel when Elias shouted from the barn. She dropped the tool in her hand. "Elias!" No answer. She ran. His coat lay on the ground. The barn door swung slowly in the wind. Mara's heart stopped. No! She ran outside. Wagon tracks crossed the snow. Fresh. Heading toward the forest. Mara did not think. She followed. Branches tore at her coat. Her boots sank into the snow. She kept running. Elias! Nothing. Then she saw the wagon. It stood in a clearing. 2 horses screamed. Men were shouting. And wolves were everywhere. The animals had surrounded the wagon. Garrick's men swung weapons wildly, but the wolves moved too quickly. They were not attacking Elias. They were driving the men away from him. Mara saw her brother through the broken wagon door. Elias! He screamed her name. She reached him. Pulled him free. He wrapped his arms around her. "I knew you'd come." Mara held him tightly. "I will always come." A wolf suddenly cried out. Mara turned. One of the grey wolves was caught in a silver trap. The animal struggled. The metal cut deeper into its leg. Elias grabbed Mara's sleeve. "Don't." She looked at him. "It might bite you." "It might." "Mara." She walked closer. The wolf growled. She stopped. Its eyes were full of pain. Not hatred. Pain. Mara slowly lowered herself to her knees. "I'm not going to hurt you." The wolf's breathing was fast. She reached toward the trap. It snapped its jaws. Mara flinched. But she did not leave. "I know." She found a broken branch. Used it to hold the trap open. Then she pulled. The wolf cried out. The trap released. The animal stumbled backward. Mara expected it to run. It didn't. It looked at her. Then lowered its head. Elias stared. "You saved it." Mara touched the wolf's shoulder. Someone had to. They returned to the farm before sunset. The injured wolf followed. Mara cleaned its wound. Elias gave it water. And just beyond the fence, the black wolf watched. He looked at the injured animal. Then at Mara. There was something in his expression. Recognition. Almost gratitude. Mara stood. "You don't need to thank me." The black wolf did not move. "You all keep protecting us." His golden eyes remained on her. "So I suppose I can protect one of you." The wolf turned toward the forest. Mara smiled faintly. Then she heard something. A branch snapping behind her. She turned. Nothing. But someone had been standing there. Someone had watched everything. And they had not been watching the wolves. They had been watching Mara. The storm arrived that night. Snow slammed against the windows. The wind shook the walls. Mara fed another log into the fire. Elias slept upstairs. The injured wolf rested near the barn. Outside, there were no wolves. For the first time in years, the farm was completely silent. Mara did not like it. She kept looking toward the door. Then, knock. She froze. Another knock. 3 slow strikes. Mara picked up the axe. "Who is it?" No answer. She opened the door a few inches. A man stood in the snow. Tall. Broad. Dark hair covered with frost. His coat was torn. Blood stained one side. One hand pressed against his ribs. "Help," he whispered. Then his knees gave way. Mara caught him before his head struck the porch. He was heavy. Much heavier than she expected. She dragged him inside. By the time she shut the door, he had already lost consciousness. Mara examined the wound. A deep cut beneath his ribs. Not a normal injury. Someone had tried to kill him. She cleaned it. Wrapped it. And waited. Hours later, the stranger opened his eyes. His hand immediately went toward a weapon. Mara stepped back. "If you wanted to kill me, you should have done it before I bandaged you." He stopped. His eyes moved around the room. "Where are the wolves?" Mara frowned. "That is your first question." His breathing slowed. "Yes." "Why?" He did not answer. Mara crossed her arms. They're outside. His eyes closed briefly, almost in relief. What kind? Mara studied him. White. Grey. Some black. His gaze sharpened. One black wolf. Yes. He looked away. Mara noticed. You know him. No. You're lying. The stranger looked back at her. There was no anger in his face. Only exhaustion. My name is Kael. Kael what? Just Kael. Mara almost laughed. You're a terrible liar. For the first time, something close to amusement touched his face. Then Elias appeared on the stairs. He looked at the stranger. Who is he? Mara answered. A traveler. Elias frowned. Kael looked at the boy. Do you trust him? Elias thought. No. Kael nodded. Good. Mara raised an eyebrow. Why good? Because you shouldn't trust strangers. You're a stranger. I know. Elias stared at him. Are you dangerous? Kael looked at the fire. Yes. Mara's hand tightened around the axe. Kael continued. But not to you. Something about the way he said it made the room feel smaller. Outside, a howl rose. Then another. Mara went to the window. The wolves had returned. All of them. The white ones. The grey ones. And the enormous black wolf. They stood around the farmhouse. But they were not growling. They were lowering their heads. Mara slowly turned. Kael was watching the window. His face had gone pale. You know them, she whispered. He said nothing. Neither did she. But something had changed. The wolves were not guarding the farm from the stranger. They were welcoming him. Kael should have left after the storm. He did not. His wound needed time. Mara did not ask him to stay. She simply placed another blanket on the chair. He understood. For several days, they lived around each other. Quietly. Kael repaired the fence. Mara fed the animals. He carried heavy sacks from the barn. She pretended she had not noticed that he was still in pain. One morning, he tried to lift a broken gate. Leave it, Mara said. I can handle it. You're bleeding. Kael looked down. A small stain had appeared beneath his shirt. I've had worse. That doesn't make this better. She took the wood from him. Kael watched her. You're stubborn. So are you. I've been called worse. I believe it. He almost smiled. It was the first time Mara saw him look like a normal man. Not a dangerous stranger. Not someone carrying a hidden past. Just a tired man standing in a muddy field. That evening, Mara found him in the library. It was barely a library. 2 shelves. A small desk. Old books her father had collected over decades. Kael was holding a thick volume with a faded royal seal. Mara stopped. You know that symbol. He looked at the cover. Yes. How? Kael hesitated. Old history. You said you were a traveler. I am. That isn't an answer. No. He closed the book. Mara sat beside him. Then answer this. She opened the book. What was this farm? Kael looked at the page. His face changed. This was a sanctuary. For what? People who had nowhere else to go. Mara stared. He continued. Children without families. Wolves injured by hunters. Packless families. Anyone who needed protection. Mara looked around the room. Her father's quiet home suddenly felt different. My father knew. He had to. Why didn't he tell me? Kael looked at her. Maybe he was trying to protect you. She turned the page. There were old names. Children. Families. Wolf healers. Then she found the final entry. Sanctuary closed by royal order. The date was 7 years earlier. The same year the Alpha King disappeared. Mara looked at Kael. Why does that matter to you? He stared at the page for a long time. Then he whispered. Because I failed someone here. Mara waited. He did not explain. She could have demanded the truth. Instead, she closed the book. You don't have to tell me tonight. Kael looked at her. Why? Because I know what it feels like when people demand pieces of you before you're ready to give them. His expression softened. For a long moment, neither moved. The fire crackled in the next room. Snow tapped gently against the window. Kael's hand rested on the table. Mara's hand was only inches away. Neither touched the other. But something had already begun. Not love. Not yet. Something quieter. Trust. And sometimes, trust was more dangerous than attraction. Because once someone had your trust, they could break your heart. The truth came looking for Mara. It arrived on horseback. 6 royal guards entered the farmyard just after sunrise. Mara stepped outside. Kael followed. The soldiers dismounted. Their leader looked toward the house. Then he saw Kael. His face changed. He dropped to one knee. Your Majesty. Mara froze. The world seemed to stop. The soldier lowered his head. Your Majesty, we have searched the northern roads for 3 days. Kael said nothing. Mara turned toward him. You're the Alpha King. It was not a question. Kael closed his eyes. Yes. Her face hardened. You lied. Yes. You let me believe you were a traveler. Yes. Why? Kael looked at the farmhouse. At the fields. At the forest. Because the last time I returned openly, people died. Mara said nothing. Kael finally told her. 7 years ago, he had discovered that members of his own council were selling vulnerable wolves and packless children. He had planned to expose them. Before he could act, they betrayed him. His younger brother was killed. Kael was captured, tortured, and eventually forced into exile. I thought everyone here was dead, he said. Mara's anger slowly changed. You thought this sanctuary was destroyed? Yes. So why did you come? Kael looked toward the forest. The wolves called. Mara frowned. You heard them? No. He looked at her. I felt them. Silence. Kael continued. The northern sanctuary was the last promise I made before I disappeared. Mara swallowed. And now? Now I know I was wrong. About what? I thought the sanctuary was a place. His eyes moved toward her. It was never the land. Mara did not understand. Kael's voice softened. It was the people who protected it. She looked away. He took a breath. The wolves stayed because they were waiting for their king. Mara whispered. Then why did they protect me? Kael's answer came quietly. Because you protected what I abandoned. Mara's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. You still should have told me. I know. You're a king. I know. You don't get to decide what truths other people deserve. Kael lowered his head. I know. That answer surprised her. She had expected excuses. Instead, he accepted her anger. And somehow that hurt more. Because now she could see the man beneath the crown. Not a powerful king. Not a legendary alpha. A man who had survived losing almost everyone he loved. A man who had come home 7 years too late. And perhaps the hardest part was this. Mara was beginning to care that he had. Garrick ran when he heard the king had returned. But men like Garrick did not run empty-handed. They took people with them. Children. Wounded wolves. Packless families. Anyone they could sell before Kael's authority reached the southern roads. Mara heard about the convoy at dusk. Elias was the one who recognized the description. That boy, he said. Mara turned. What boy? The one in the wagon. He swallowed. From the farm near the river. Mara looked at Kael. Kael was already reaching for his coat. Where? Old Southern Road. They rode through the night. When they found the convoy, the moon was high. 3 wagons. Armed men. Children behind iron bars. And wolves chained beneath canvas. Mara felt sick. Garrick stood beside the largest wagon. He smiled when Kael approached. Your Majesty. Kael's expression was empty. Dangerously empty. Release them. Garrick laughed. I have legal papers. Kael held out his hand. Garrick gave him the document. Kael read it. Then tore it in half. Garrick's smile disappeared. That law was written by my council. Your council is gone. You can't simply destroy. Kael stepped closer. I can. His voice was quiet. That was what frightened Garrick. Kael did not need to shout. The power was already in the room. Mara moved toward the first cage. A little boy stared at her. He was shaking. She knelt. What's your name? John. John, I'm going to open this. He looked behind her. Will they come back? No. She broke the chain. Then the next. And the next. Soon the children were free. One little girl remained inside the wagon. She would not move. Mara climbed inside. Come with me. The girl shook her head. I don't have anywhere. Mara's heart broke. You do now. The child looked at her. Where? Mara held out her hand. Home. The girl took it. Behind them, Kael approached the slave cart. He looked at the chains. Then at Garrick. These carts carried children. Garrick said nothing. Kael struck a torch against the wood. Fire climbed the cart. Mara watched the flames. The symbol was simple. The old world was burning. The cages were opened. The chains were broken. The law that protected them was gone. Garrick backed away. You can't destroy everything. Kael looked at him. No. He turned toward the freed children. Only what should never have existed. The wolves circled the road. Mara stood among the children. Kael looked at her. There was something in his eyes now. Not just admiration. Something deeper. He had seen powerful people all his life. But Mara had done what most kings could not. She had seen suffering. And moved toward it. She had no army. No crown. No title. Only courage. And suddenly Kael understood. The wolves had never chosen Mara because she was connected to him. They had chosen her because she was exactly what the sanctuary had always been meant to protect. A person who would protect others. Victory lasted one day. On the second morning, Mara was summoned to the royal hall. The council was waiting. The same men who had once avoided her now stood beneath royal banners. Elder Garrick spoke first. The farm belongs to the crown. Mara looked at him. And? You have no legal right to remain there. Kael sat at the head of the hall. Silent. Mara looked at him. For one painful moment, she wondered whether he would choose the crown over her. Garrick continued. The woman should be removed. Kael finally spoke. Bring me the oldest sanctuary record. A clerk brought a sealed document. Kael opened it. He read. Then looked toward Mara. The guardian of the sanctuary is not appointed by blood. Garrick frowned. What does that matter? Kael continued. The guardian is the person who protects the sanctuary when the crown fails to do so. Silence. Mara understood. Her father had been guardian. After his death, she had become one. Garrick protested. That law is obsolete. Mara stepped forward. Then change it. Everyone looked at her. She continued. If the law protects people like Garrick, it is a bad law. Kael watched her. Mara's voice remained steady. I don't want land because the king favors me. She looked directly at Kael. I don't want protection because I am your friend. His eyes softened. I want the law to protect people who have nobody. No one spoke. Then Kael stood. The entire hall became silent. As king, he said, I restore the northern sanctuary. Garrick lowered his head. And Mara remains its guardian. Mara did not smile. Not yet. Because there was still one mystery. Why had the wolves chosen her? That evening, Kael found Mara alone in the library. She was staring at the old royal book. You knew, she said. Kael stopped. Knew what? That something was different between us. He did not answer. Mara looked at him. Didn't you? Kael slowly walked closer. Yes. How long? Since I saw you. Her breath caught. He looked away. But I did not know what it was. Mara whispered. And now? Kael's jaw tightened. Now I am afraid I know. She waited. He did not explain. Instead, he said, come back to the farm with me. Why? Because I think the wolves have something to show us. The farm looked different when they returned. Not because the buildings had changed, but because Mara no longer saw them as a place she had been forced to survive. She saw home. The fields were still damaged. The fence still leaned toward the road. The old barn still needed repair. But children now laughed near the house. The wolves rested beyond the trees. And Kael walked beside her. Not as king. Not as stranger. Just Kael. At sunset, a white wolf appeared. It looked at Mara. Then turned toward the forest. Mara followed. Kael followed her. They walked beneath the trees until the wolf stopped beside an ancient stone. Moss covered its surface. Mara brushed it away. Symbols appeared. Kael stopped. What is it? He stared. His expression changed. Mating marks. Mara's heart began to beat faster. What? Kael touched one symbol. This is old. How old? Older than the kingdom. A warmth spread through Mara's chest. She took a breath. Kael looked at her. And suddenly he understood. The wolves. The farm. The feeling that had followed him since he first arrived. The strange peace he felt whenever she was near. It had never been coincidence. She was his mate. Mara stepped backward. No. Kael immediately stopped. She looked frightened. Does this mean you expect me to become queen? No. Do you expect me to choose you? No. Does the bond give you the right to claim me? Kael answered without hesitation. No. Mara stared at him. He continued. The bond can explain why we were drawn together. His voice softened. But it cannot decide what we become. She looked away. For years, Mara had been told what she owed. What she should surrender. Where she should live. Who had the right to decide her future. She would not let destiny become another cage. I won't choose you because wolves chose for me. Kael nodded. I don't want that. She looked at him. What do you want? His answer was almost painfully simple. You. Mara's eyes filled. That's not an answer. Kael stepped closer. I want the woman who argues with me. Another step. The woman who saves wolves when she's afraid. Another. The woman who protects children she doesn't know. He stopped. I want the woman who makes me remember who I was before I lost everything. Mara could barely breathe. But if you don't choose me, he whispered, I will still protect your right to walk away. Silence. Then Kael reached toward her. He stopped before touching her hand. Mara looked at his fingers. Then at his face. And slowly, she closed the distance. Her hand slipped into his. The moment their fingers touched, warmth spread through both of them. The wind moved through the trees. The wolves remained completely silent. Mara whispered. So this is a choice. Kael looked into her eyes. Yes. She squeezed his hand. Then I choose. For the first time in years, Kael smiled without sadness. And somewhere behind them, the white wolf lowered its head. The bond had awakened. But it had not commanded them. They had chosen it. The final attack came before dawn. Mara woke to wolves growling. Not the warning growl she had heard before. This was different. Deep. Urgent. She opened the door. The forest was full of movement. Men were approaching. Dozens of them. The remaining corrupt council members had made one last decision. If they could not control the kingdom, they would destroy the evidence that could expose them. The sanctuary had to disappear. Mara woke Elias. Get the children into the cellar. What about you? I'll be behind you. You promise? Mara knelt. I promise. The children ran. Mara closed the cellar door. Then she stood in the farmhouse doorway. The first attackers entered the field. And the wolves emerged. 1, 10, 50. More. White bodies appeared in the darkness. Grey shadows moved between the trees. And at the center, the enormous black wolf stood watching. Mara recognized him. The scar. The golden eyes. Kael. He had shifted before arriving. His wolf form towered above the others. He stepped forward. The attackers stopped. Then a voice shouted, "Kill them!" The wolves charged. The battle was brief. Not because the attackers were weak, but because they had never understood what they were facing. These were not wild animals. They were guardians. And they were defending their home. Kael fought at the center. Mara stayed near the farmhouse. When one attacker reached the cellar door, she struck him with the heavy iron bar she kept beside the entrance. He fell. Another came. She raised the bar again. She was afraid. But she did not move. Because fear had never been enough to make her abandon someone. By sunrise, it was over. The corrupt council was broken. The soldiers who survived surrendered. The farm still stood. Smoke rose from the distant trees. Snow covered the fields. Mara stepped outside. The children followed. Elias stood beside her. Then the wolves began to move. One by one, they walked toward Mara. The white wolves. The grey wolves. The black ones. Hundreds of them. They stopped before her. Then something happened that no one in the kingdom had ever seen. Every wolf lowered itself to the ground. Every head bowed. Not before Kael. Before Mara. Elias stared. Mara could not move. Kael approached slowly. He looked at the wolves. Then at her. And finally, he understood. They never protected you because you belonged to me. Mara looked at him. They protected you because you belonged to them. Her eyes filled with tears. Kael took her hand. You saved the sanctuary when I failed it. Mara smiled through her tears. You came back. I almost didn't. But you did. He looked toward the farmhouse. Then toward the children. Then back to her. I can give you a crown. Mara laughed softly. I know. I can make you queen. I know. But I won't ask you to wear it because of the bond. He stepped closer. I'll ask because I love you. Mara stopped breathing. Kael's voice remained calm. No grand speech. No command. Just truth. I loved you before I understood why. Mara looked down. Then back at him. I was afraid of you. I know. I was angry with you. I know. I still am sometimes. A small smile touched his face. I know. She laughed through her tears. Then she stepped closer. I don't want to be protected by a king. Kael's eyes softened. I want to stand beside the man who came home. He lifted her hand. Their bond warmed between them. Not like fire. Like sunlight. Like something that had been waiting beneath the cold for years. Kael touched his forehead to hers. Then stand beside me. Mara closed her eyes. I choose you. Behind them, Elias smiled. The children gathered around the farmhouse. The wolves settled into the snow. And the enormous black wolf that had once watched Mara from the edge of the forest disappeared into the trees. Because he no longer needed to guard her alone. The king had returned. And the woman who had protected his forgotten sanctuary had finally become its heart. Years later, people would still tell the story. They would say the wolves had known first. They would say they had guarded Mara because they knew she was destined to become queen. But that was not quite true. The wolves had not protected her because she was destined for a crown. They protected her because she protected everyone who had nowhere else to go. She fed the hungry. She freed the chained. She sheltered the lost. And when the king finally returned, she taught him that coming home was not about reclaiming a throne. It was about finding the person who made home worth returning to. At sunrise, Mara stood beside Kael in the field. The children played near the barn. Smoke rose gently from the chimney. The mountains glowed gold. And wolves rested peacefully along the fence. The same wolves the village had once feared. The same wolves everyone had called monsters. Now they slept beneath the morning sun. Because there was nothing left to guard against. The sanctuary was safe. The children were free. The king was home. And Mara was no longer alone. For 7 years, the northern farm had been waiting for its king. But the truth was, the king had been waiting for the woman who would teach him how to come home. And when their hands met beneath the rising sun, the wolves finally stopped watching the road. Because there was nowhere else for their king to return to. He was already home.